I'm Carlee Spagnola with Kids First.
And I'm Joshitha B, and today we have the pleasure of interviewing writer and director Elizabeth Lowe about the film Stray.
Thanks so much for joining us, Ms. Lowe.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited about this.
How did you choose the dogs featured in this film, Zayton, Nazar, and Cartel, and how did you keep track of them while filming?
I came across Zayton and Nazar in a really busy underground tunnel where lots of people were walking, and suddenly there were these two dogs, huge dogs, streaking past us on their way to seemingly catch an appointment. And that really piqued my interest because you think of stray dogs, they have no jobs, they have no owners. Yeah. Where could they be off to? And so we followed them and chased them, and they happened to be on the heels of the young Syrian men who are a part of the film. And that relationship that they had was really moving to me. So we started to film with Zayton and Nazar. And I think one of the reasons why Zayton emerges as sort of the star of the film is that she was one of the only dogs who didn't inadvertently sort of follow us back. And it was so important for our production to have a dog that was really independent, who didn't follow us, so that we could follow her and let her take us on a journey and envelop us in her non-human will, to step outside of our view as humans. And that was what was a really important sort of mission in the film.
That was a really interesting backstory. I think you chose the dogs perfectly. I mean, while watching, I just fell in love with all the dogs. I thought they were all super sweet, kind, interesting.
Yeah, I forgot the second part of your question. Technically, the way we tracked them was at the end of the shoot day every day, we would put on little GPS trackers of collars on them. And that would allow us to trace them on our phones where they would go throughout the night. And then the next morning we wake up and see where they were and find them that way.
Yeah, because I know Istanbul's it's a big city. So I was like, how do they know where these dogs go all the time? So
yeah, I mean, just like people, these dogs had their habits. They had a really wide range throughout the city, which I was really surprised by, but they also had the cafes that they frequented constantly, just like us.
Very interesting. Thank you.
So the dogs in the film, I noticed, acted really well, especially with the more emotional scenes. So, and with the communication barrier, I'd love to know more about how you manage that. Did you train them or what?
There was no training at all. I think they were untrainable as stray dogs. When I tried to put a collar and leash on Zayton, she became very she would stiffen up and just sit there and refuse to move. So there was no way that I could take her any place that she didn't want to go herself. I think the dogs, what I noticed about the dogs of Istanbul is that because people treat them so well there, and because there are these laws that protect them where they're not allowed to euthanize or kill them or even hold them in captivity, if they're healthy, that the dogs were really well socialized, far more well socialized than I think a lot of pet dogs that I encounter in LA or Hong Kong, because those dogs have grown up having to navigate how to understand human emotions and read people's boundaries, whether people liked them or not. So it was really easy to film with them, also because I was good to them. They were good to me in a way, with the old sort of stereotype of a dog worked in the case of filming.
I love that. Really interesting.
What made you choose Istanbul as the setting for the film?
Istanbul has this really interesting history with dogs that I read about before I set out there and even had ever been to Turkey. As the Ottoman Empire was crumbling in the 1900s, a British diplomat went to Istanbul in Turkey. He was chased by a pack of dogs, fell to his own death, and then the British government, in retaliation, because it was much stronger than the Turkish one, forced the Turkish government to round up all their stray animals and banish them to an island where they would starve to death. And people of Istanbul could hear the dogs howling. And shortly afterwards, huge fires broke out because there were no dogs to warn people. And then World War I happened. And so Turkish people really see the exiling of the dogs as a curse on the country and the city. And so over the next 100 years, the government the Turkish one has tried to eradicate stray dogs from the streets in this attempt to conform to Western ideals of what a good city looks like New York and London. When you think of those, there are no stray dogs. It's not tolerant of any kind of stray animals. And so Istanbul but people fought for the rights of dogs. In 2004, they passed these really radical laws where it's, if you pick them up, the government, to vaccinate them, they have to drop them off, which was such a profound level of respect and so unfamiliar to the cultures that I'm from. I was really intrigued by it. And I really wanted to share this vision of how to relate to dogs in a different way that challenges our notions of what it means to be close to
Yeah,
dogs.
that was a neat little history lesson. And I'm glad that they can now roam freely, because I think that's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I think we tend to think of cities with stray animals as somehow not taking care of their animals, but it's
Yeah.
actually the exact opposite. Like if you thought deeply about it, like in the US, we kill millions, billions of stray animals every year, and it's really inhumane. But somehow in our minds, we've twisted it around to say we're doing the good job and not the
Yeah.
countries that allow them to roam freely.
Yeah, I'm glad Istanbul lets them just roam wherever they want to go and not keep them locked up and stuff.
Yeah.
So this is more of like a lighthearted question, but what was your most favorite scene to direct?
I think I loved almost every moment of filming with the dogs. I guess one of the most striking scenes for me was when Zeytin and Nazar were fighting over the bone in this really busy street, and the trash truck comes, and this older gentleman steps out of the trash truck, and I didn't know what he was about to do at that point. I thought he was maybe going to shoo the dogs away, but instead he intervenes between the dogs and forces them to share the bone. And I thought that was really moving, that like no drama is too small for people to care about in this city. And then all of the sequence of what happens when the dogs they fight over the bone, they see the father and the toddler sort of being introduced to dogs, and then they reunite with the young men. That was all in real time, an authentic sequence. And so I really loved sort of the serendipitousness of those moments of documentary filmmaking.
Yeah, that's really heartwarming, actually.
Yeah.
Where did the idea for this film come from?
It came from a really personal place. I don't know if you guys have dogs, but I had a childhood dog growing up. And when he passed away, I remember feeling like I couldn't take his death sort of as seriously, or I wasn't allowed to take his death as seriously as I would a human family member, even though we were so close and I loved him so much. And so that really led me to question sort of the status of other species within our culture. And that led me to making this film, which is sort of in following a stray dog. It's this assertion that their stories are worthy of a feature-length film or novel or whatever other art form you choose to represent their lives, and that it's sort of an assertion of their absolute value, even though they don't speak and they're not in our own species group.
Mm-hmm. People form amazing bonds with their dogs and other animals. So I'm glad you brought us into the lives of these dogs, and just especially at eye level is very creative. I loved it.
Yeah, it was really important to me that the film really tried to put you in sort of the dog's viewpoint, because I don't know exactly what it does to a viewer's perception of everything happening around them, the dogs, but I feel like it's an important and very literal way of sort of challenging unconventional or conventional ways of seeing, that the film is asking you to step outside of what you know about the world as a human or whatever culture you're from, and to see sort of everything afresh through the cinematography that's from a different angle.
Yes, it taught you a lot about the dogs, as well as like the culture there and how people live there.
Yeah, the dogs were really sort of this window into not only canine culture, but also human life. So all the people that they encounter in the public spaces.
Yeah, very interesting.
So, like, what impact do you think this film will have?
What I really hope that the film accomplishes is, of course, that it leads you to think about how rich the inner lives of dogs can be, even in your relationship with your own pet. And but also I hope the film will act as a decolonizing tool. I think from the West, we tend to think we know what's right about morality, or what, how we should relate to other species and how cities should be run. And we point fingers at other cultures that are different than ours, such as cultures with lots of stray dogs. But I hope that this portrait of life in Istanbul and how dogs are integrated into it and living life on their own terms and living really rich lives, that people can question. It leads them to question their own culture and their own cities, and what it means that our cities are emptied of other species in a way. I think that sort of internal mental shift is something that I went through as I made this film, and I hope audiences go through that too, because challenging your own beliefs is something that can be always really profound and productive.
I mean, as a viewer, I think I definitely got that message, and it was really enlightening to see, actually. So
thank you so much. That's great to hear.
Thank you so much. So for joining us today to talk about your upcoming film, Stray.
I'm so impressed that you guys are watching it at this age and gleaning so much from it.
Magnolia Pictures releases Stray in theaters and on demand March 5th, 2021. I'm Carlee Spagnolo.
And I'm Joshitha B. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss another great review or interview. Bye.
Bye.
Yaşayan bir insan hayatında çok zengin oldu.